Welcome back. In this segment, we're going to talk about responding to reviewers. So, in the last segment, we talked about what the editorial review process is. So, let's say you've gotten some comments back now. You could have been rejected, you could have been accepted, you could have been accepted with revisions. So, we're going to unpack what to do and how to react when you do get those reviewer comments. So, what's something an author absolutely should not do when responding to reviewers? Think about this for a moment and write something down. What's something an author absolutely should not do when responding to reviewers? So, what'd you write down? Did you write down scream and shout in writing? Take a tone of condescension, perhaps, or take it personally, kind of scream on paper, right? We don't want to do that. We don't want to attack the reviewer either. We'll get into some other things that you want to think about too here in a minute. So I love this quote from Carl Sagan: valid criticism does you a favor. Well, who determines what's valid criticism? Do you determine it? Does the person who's making the criticism determine it? Who determines what's valid? I think at the end of the day, at the very end of the day, after you've had time to process it, read the criticism and then take a break. And then maybe read it again. And maybe if you're really still angry, take another break until you can separate yourself from it and realize it's not personal. And then really process the criticism and really go back and look at your work to see the validity of it, see how valid it is. Sometimes you're not going to agree. We've talked about this before in responding to criticism, right? Sometimes you're going to go, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not compromising my work. I'm not changing this, whatever it might be. So sometimes it's not going to be valid for you. You might say, okay, well, I can see how they would say this or how they would think this, but no, not right. Okay? So be thoughtful about that criticism. Take time with that criticism. Realize that this is a bit of a process. And realize that valid criticism does you a favor because it helps you improve and it helps your science improve. It makes it more likely it's going to be received positively in the scientific community. So some possible outcomes. We mentioned this already, right? You get completely accepted. Hooray, hurrah, this is the best case scenario, right? You get published. Yay. A request for revisions and resubmission. We're not going to accept it at this time. Here's some things you should change or consider or do. Please try again. That's also, not a terrible outcome. It's not as great as being accepted, and it's certainly not as bad as being rejected. But resubmission revisions, depending on how detailed and how much they are, you might need to think about that. And then lastly, rejection. Nobody wants to be rejected. You didn't do all this work and put all this effort into it only to be rejected. It happens, unfortunately. And we'll talk about how to deal with requests for resubmission and revisions and how to deal with rejection here in a sec. Okay, we're going to start with revisions, though. So if you're tentatively accepted with revisions or you're asked to resubmit with revisions, here are some things you want to make sure you're thinking about. Most editors will respect the choices you make in your revisions as long as you explain your reasoning and make a genuine effort to address weaknesses in your manuscript, right? So this is a direct quote. So how do you determine what weaknesses are? How do you determine this whole explaining your reasoning? So if there are really things in there that you don't agree with, that you completely disagree with the editors on, you should state that in your cover letter to your resubmission, saying, hey, I didn't take this suggestion and here's why. But I did take all these other ones. And honestly, you probably want to put something like, I really appreciate your comments. I thought the reviews were very thoughtful, and here's how I'm going to use them. Be nice. Being nice goes a very long way. Most editors will respect your choices, as it says, as long as you explain them and defend them And I would even add to this, as long as you're being nice about it, right? Address that that your manuscript did have weaknesses and that you needed to make some changes. If you just blatantly say, I don't accept any of these things, it stands on its own, you're probably not going to make any friends that way. And not that it's about making friends, but you're probably not going to get published either. Okay? So be thoughtful about your revisions. Make all the ones that you feel comfortable with. If there are some that you feel uncomfortable with, check with someone else. Go to someone you trust. Go to your mentor. Go to your supervisor. Go to another faculty member, a colleague, and say, what do you think about this? Get a second opinion. It doesn't hurt. If you do get rejected, try not to take it personally. I know I sure do. If somebody puts a roadblock up for me, I'm going to take it very personally. Even though we talked about, 38 point something % of all these articles are going to get rejected. At the end of the day, someone has to get rejected in order for everything to move forward. So try not to take it personally. Don't stop. Don't go, fine, I've quit science. I quit research. That's not the right answer. Don't stop. What you want to do is get back out there. Get back to writing. Look at other journals. If this one didn't accept it, perhaps someone else will. You should get some criticism and some feedback from the journal that's not accepting your work. See if you can make changes and submit it somewhere else. Some people really are afraid of failure. Some people are afraid of success. I try to be in the middle, afraid of everything. But don't fear failure, right? Get back out there. Don't stop. Keep working. Look for the positive, right? They accepted it. It got past first review. It made it to the editorial review panel. You got good feedback. All of those pieces that will help you respond appropriately to rejection. I would always say send up a thank you note anyway, even if it's a thank you email, and say thank you for the time that you took with this. Thank you for reviewing my manuscript. I'm going to take your comments to heart, and I'm going to make changes and resubmit it to another journal. I really appreciate your time. Again, being nice goes a long way, because your next article, you may want to send it right back to this journal, and they might go, oh, they were so nice. Even though we rejected them, they said this, this, and this. And, people remember things. People remember who's nice and who's not nice, okay? So try to respond appropriately to rejection. So what's the path once you are accepted? What does that look like? Well, it begins with the confirmation that your manuscript has been accepted, and they're probably going to ask you to make some changes. The editor will make some suggestions for you. You'll make those revisions and send it back in. If the editor wants more suggestions or has more suggestions or revisions, then you'll do that. Eventually, you'll go through that process enough times that the editor will then hand it off to the copy editor, who does another read for a different purpose, kind of that grammatical, mechanical thing to make sure everything is aligned and good, right? And the manuscript will be returned at that point once it gets through copy editing with all the changes that they've made for you to kind of review it and approve it. And once you approve it, it moves right on down the line to production, and you get your copy of the journal with your article in it right after it goes through proofreading. Sorry, I skipped a step. Yeah, so it's editor, copy editor, proofreading. And you should be able to do a proofread as well before it goes fully to production. So that's the process: acceptance, rejection, and revisions, and how to approach revisions, as well as how to approach acceptance. So as always, if you have comments, questions, issues, concerns, please reach out to me via email right here, sam.gannon@vanderbilt.edu. Until the next segment, good luck with your publication.